Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. So, welcome to today's special event on Azure Sentinel. My name's Leon Godwin. I'm your Principal Cloud Evangelist here at Cloud Direct. I'm thrilled to be your host today. We're going to look into Microsoft Sentinel today, their security information and event management solution that's designed to help protect your organization from the myriad threats that, let's face it, are not getting any easier to deal with, and overall how Sentinel can help improve your security posture. In this episode of in our Security Lab series, we're going to cover the key components of Azure Sentinel, including its integration and analytics capabilities, its threat intelligence. We'll explore the tools that provide protection to an enterprise environment. And we're going to look at the Microsoft Digital Defense Report and ultimately how we can be more robust with Azure Sentinel from the real world situations that are presenting themselves in the advent of newer, more sophisticated threats. And we'll also touch on best practice. So today I'm very excited to be joined by Lina Kuzminskiene, and I've murdered your surname, sorry Lina. So Lina works for Microsoft. She is a cybersecurity specialist at Microsoft and has been instrumental in helping organizations adopt the technologies in a best practice approach. So good morning to you, Lina.
Good morning, Leon. Happy to be here.
Okay, wonderful. So why don't we start off by just actually looking about where we sort of find ourselves in that sort of security landscape and the kind of the current challenges that we face.
Well, it shouldn't be surprise to anyone, right, that the cyber threat landscape continues to become more and more dangerous and complex. The bad actors are becoming better resourced and better prepared with sophisticated tactics, techniques, and tools. They challenge everyone from small organizations to big enterprises, Microsoft including. So cybersecurity should be nowadays, everyone's responsibility for keeping their own house in order. And organizations need to have a end-to-end security platform, thread informed, thread led, and scalable solution. To kind of enhance their security posture. So I encourage really everyone to read the latest Microsoft Digital Defense reports to familiarize themselves with the latest threat landscape and risks and threats. I personally believe, that everyone must do better hardening their digital domain, their estates, to protect their users and their data. So if you look at the insights on the screen, the median time for an attacker to access private data, as soon as the end user clicked on the phishing email, it's about an hour. It's a very scary number. If you look at the password attacks per month, year over year, they grown by 10 times. Just last year, it was 3 billions. Now we have 30 billions. I mean, the numbers are really scary. And because, and the numbers became scary because the threat actors, that Microsoft tracks, those wide state threat actors, they are growing also because of the capabilities, because of the AI, because of the digital workplace. We are tracking now from 200 to plus 300. I mean, let's not forget the whole political situation happening. It's for them, it's like increasing the vector, increasing the capabilities and attacking every organization. So if you look at the threats at the landscape, you know, we cannot forget the challenges the SOC teams has, and those challenges, are things like organizations today, they unfortunately have multiple solutions in their infrastructure. Those solutions, are siloed. And if you think about that, attacks are happening in the minutes, not hours. Security teams, they just don't have time to work in those siloed solutions. They just don't have time to kind of respond in the days or in the months to those incidents, right? So, in Microsoft, we witnessed, an entire campaign happening in just a couple of minutes. And sometimes the attackers, will start moving laterally across your estate in as little as 5 minutes, as soon as the end user clicked on the malicious link. And as long as the analysts are kind of stuck working in those silos, stuck working with two different dashboards, uh, with different monitors, the attackers have an advantage today, which organizations just can't afford any longer. And cost, with the burst of data, with the amount of data we have today, the solution, and the data is growing. The people are working from anywhere. Organizations try to monetize the data to have revenue out of it. So the data is scalable, the data is growing. So and the SOC teams are required to monitor everything in the organization, and so it adds to the cost, obviously, right? So it's more important than ever to have that transparency into what data you need if you want to really maximize the value of your investment. And again, because of the multiple solutions, silent solutions, the analysts have very little time to focus on high value tasks. So that's when we have a burnout. So if they need to go and really dig into multi-stage incident, multi-stage attack, to do proper forensic analysis, to do proper mitigation steps, they just don't have time for it. They want to go and reduce the attack surface. They just don't have time, because it's the incidents that you get from your estates are just enormous. And the most important thing, the most biggest challenge that we have today is also the ever growing gap in demand and supply for the talent for cybersecurity, right? We just don't have enough people to work. We just don't have enough people to would require cybersecurity skills to cover that gap. So the security teams, they really need to have that solution which will amplify the skills that they currently have, some sort of force multiplier to help them with those advanced threat risks. So that's where Microsoft Sentinel comes in, because it offers a truly the one and only end-to-end solution for security operations. It's a scalable solution to meet your unique organization needs. It protects everything. It protects truly everything from your endpoints, users, multi-cloud, hybrid, on-premise, and applications. It's a cloud native solution. It's a cloud native SIEM and SOAR solution, and it offers a robust threat detection response. It's a very powerful tool for organizations to detect, investigate, and respond to those ever evolving cyber threats effectively. So it takes data from users, devices, applications, aggregates the data, then uses AI and machine learning, and the most important thing, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence, which flows through Sentinel, and it provides your organization the incident analysis, proactive hunting, and automated response. The beauty of it is that it is integrated with all Microsoft services, with third-party toolings, which gives you that truly unified eco security system. I mean, and let's not forget, the our global footprint. and the magnitude of the signals that we ingest into our products to make sure they are secure and to make sure your infrastructure is secure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. In preparation for this call, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He's a managing director at a security consultancy in Portugal, and they do sort of like they've got a SOC, and they've got this red teaming capability where the chief exec hires them to go and do a simulated attack to be able to benchmark the responsiveness of their teams. And a couple of things came out of that, which was he's saying their time to respond, the initial response, is kind of uniform across customers, regardless of platforms. But the time to resolve was significantly shorter when they had a unified platform, because of the point that you were making. And he was kind of echoing that when you have multiple separate data sets and tooling to be able to pull together a narrative and a flow of the nature of the attack or the breach, that delays the time to resolution.
Yeah.
Having that unification is kind of interesting. And another thing, years ago I used to, and I've always sort of kept my eye in, I got certified as an ethical hacker because required for an organization. One of the things I would do is sort of password cracking using the sort of hashes of passwords. And that was a relatively slow process because of the hardware capabilities that were available now. But with the advent of sort of AI and the GPU horsepower explosion,
Yes.
which is infinitely more powerful, that's one of the reasons why you go from 3 billion to 30 billion, is because the
Correct.
ability to actually execute on an attack is made more available by tooling that I've got right here that's capable of just processing vast amounts of information to force entry into an organization. So yeah, I think a lot of what you're saying kind of makes a lot of sense to me. And also, it's kind of comforting, I think, when you think about the nature of attackers, the toolings they're using, the advent of AI to be able to respond, adapt, adjust an attack vector for that lateral movement to be able to cause, if theirs is a malicious intent and disruption is their agenda, that ability to be able to do that with that tooling is great. And humans just aren't capable of responding fast enough. And so having that ability to have AI working alongside you, and one of the things I do AI talks, a human being can only read about and understand about 200 words a minute. An AI is capable of many thousands orders of magnitude. Yeah. So it's just better and faster. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what about core functionalities? Do you want to sort of step into some of those sort of products and features that exist within the Sentinel stack?
Well, to be honest, the core functionalities would have been discussed in the slide that we just showed. The ability really to utilize the machine learning and AI capabilities to discover effectively the threats, the risks, and then action them automatically by using machine learning, by using an AI. So those are the main kind of capabilities that you need. And the fact that you really have the one dashboard where you can monitor, touching a capability that you mentioned, knowing the time it took for you to resolve an incident, time it took to action on the incident. It kind of gives you a perspective, that how powerful the tool is, and if you look at the organizations, they have still a lot of organizations have 80 and more tools in their infrastructure. I mean, think about it, the time and operational overhead required, to look after them, to stitch them together, to make sure the insights flows from one to another. And when something happens, you need to go to different tools and find what was the user, what was the IP address, what was the service, which host was it? Did someone else clicked on that email? How far the email spread? and you go and need to check different tools, right? But with Sentinel, you can have it in one dashboard. The benefit of having the one service provider, you're closing those gaps, because I do get the question, what about, putting all your eggs in one basket? It's not the luxury people can afford anymore, because having multiple solutions exposes you to gaps. And it's not something you can kind of allow anymore, you know, uh, because having those gaps increases the likelihood of being breached. And it's not about when, it's not about if, actually, it's about when it's going to happen.
Mhm.
So they should focus on what tools do we have to make sure we know what happened, what learnings we take from it, and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again, right? And that's what Sentinel offers.
Yeah, it's in terms of those timings. One of the reports I kind of enjoy is the Verizon threat report, and they did in their report they showed that when someone wants to get in, they're doing it, and that you can measure it in minutes. Their
Yeah,
ability to infiltrate and exfiltrate data can also be measured in minutes, but the detection time is months, and the containment time is weeks. And
yeah,
unfortunately, that trend is still expanding. So, once upon some reports say 179 days, but then the next year's report comes out and it's like 201 days, and the detection times are getting longer. And I was also chatting with one of your colleagues, Aileen, on a previous episode that we did around XDR, and she was describing how having these tool sets, you talked about sort of 70 tools, with XDR, because of the breadth of its capabilities, was able to actually replace some of those tools. So actually, as well as a simplification and making things better, they're removing the cost overhead of those other tools and obviously the personnel. So, you're getting better, faster, cheaper. And I'm kind of sensing the same thing with Sentinel, that the breadth of the capability would allow consolidation of tool sets. Is that reasonable?
that is completely reasonable. Without, if you take security, Microsoft as a security provider, right? If we think about where Microsoft with security was 10 years ago, it's nowhere near the level we are now. If you look at the latest Gartner report, we were recognized as a leader year after year. As soon as Microsoft starting investing and focusing, realizing the global footprint they have with their Windows devices, with their Xbox, with their Hotmail, with telemetry data we have, they started utilizing, and that's when we became main player in security space. And we're able to cover, if you talk about security again, I might be wrong, but I don't think we ever will be able to really be, a security provider who's able to cover all of it. There's always going to be requirements, to have some other provider inside to work with the partner, with the partner who will offer, SOC capabilities, who will utilize our solution to make, offer their services to make our solution better. So it's never going to be one provider covers all. It's always going to be requirement to kind of have other solutions within the state. However, we're able to cover more than 50 categories if you think about security. So where you have customers who utilize now sometimes 80 products, they go with Microsoft security provider and they're able to cover 50 of them. So that's more than half.
Mm.
It comes with the cost. It comes with the utilization. You get your return on investment. You have one provider. You have less security gaps. So I mean, it's something what everyone should be aiming for. And if you look at those other biggest players, they also are aiming for the one platform approach, but it's never going to be for them one platform, right? Because there's always going to be some sort of customization required if they need to stitch those solutions. I mean, granted, they might work the same as a Microsoft platform once it's customized and configured, But the flow that they have to go through, it will have to jump to different hoops to identify that's the thread. Where in Microsoft, with Microsoft platform, it's by design and by default, it's built in, because Microsoft owns the platform, Microsoft owns the telemetry and all of it. So I think it's, I think it should be, um, for organizations, it should be easy decision to make. And that, do I go with one solution provider or put all my one eggs in a basket? It's not the choice anymore. It should be also by default for organizations.
And it makes sense. I mean, a lot of people in the audience are going to be running Microsoft workloads,
Yeah.
and who better to understand the Microsoft environment than Microsoft? So there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of sort of logic to that process. But in terms of sort of extensibility, can you extend out to other services and connect to other security solutions or feeds or systems? Is that, do you have that sort of concept of connectors to other technologies?
Absolutely. Sentinel is, integrated with Azure, and with other third-party services. And we use API-based integration. The connection is SSL, TSL secure. We have native data connectors with Microsoft services, Defender, Azure AD, Enter AD, Defender for Cloud, etc. And because Microsoft is in a way an open platform, you can make custom connectors. So we have in legacy applications, build your own build applications. You want to ingest those logs into Sentinel, it's open to utilize using custom connectors. And I think that precisely that integration really helps organizations to gain that holistic view of their security landscape, and they can properly streamline the threat detection and response.
Okay, one of the things I was chatting with some of your colleagues around other sort of technology stacks was the integration with Copilot for security. Is that integration, does that happen in with Sentinel? Because one of the things I found profound was, especially around like XDR and Purview, is it's complicated. The amount of data and the volume of data, it actually is confusing to be able to synthesize all that through your head.
Yeah.
And having that Copilot actually summarize it in a consumable way. This is what's happening. This is what I've done. This is what you should do next. And it's almost like having a security coach next to you that's actually turning something that is very, very complex in terms of sort of threat telemetry into a very simple sentence that is easy to consume and for you to do actions on. Is that integration in play with Sentinel?
So Copilot for security is integrated across the Microsoft security portfolio. I think we should understand that Sentinel is a SIEM solution, and Copilot for security kind of augments the capabilities, right? So thinking about the talent gap we have, organizations just don't have enough time for them to go on Sentinel and start writing difficult KQL query to understand what's their estate, to do proactive hunting. Not everyone has those capabilities. You need to be able to have like junior analysts that can go and ask a question: what are the major risks on my estate? By using natural language questions. You just need to be able to do that today. And that's where Copilot for security comes in. So it is Copilot for security is ingested across the all Microsoft security portfolio. So you go to Intune, you go to Enter AD, you go to Azure, you're able to ask the natural language question. However, it's not the SIEM or source solution, right? If you think about AI and machine learning, Sentinel uses machine learning and AI for analytics. It uses to enhance and improve the threat detection and response in several ways. Very first one is the fusion analytics. So it's enabled on your Sentinel by default. So it's there as soon as you start the Sentinel. So that engine uses machine learning capabilities to, again, to correlate the data from various data sources to detect those really advanced multi-stage attacks. Sentinel also uses the machine learning driven automation and response. So your SOC analysts, can really reduce the time and effort required for manual intervention, so they can really focus on those high priority alerts. And because every organization have unique security needs, you can create your own custom-made machine learning models, and they will allow your organization really to build and integrate those models tailored for your organization specific needs. So again, you can have that more in-depth and accurate threat analysis. And of course, let's not forget that it's not enough today to be reactive. You need to be proactive. You need to go and do that proactive hunting and behavioral analysis to reduce the false positives and detect those previously unseen and unknown risks. So you can do all that in SIEM, in Sentinel, but where Copilot for Security comes in is really to help the SOC team, SOC analysts to for proactive hunting and knowing how is your security posture. Uh, where do you need to do the improvements? Where is your weakest IP? What is the device which has very high risk score? What actions can you take to increase that score? And if you use a Sentinel, it's a query you need to write. Given we do have a lot of templates, by default key queries that they can ask, but it's still somewhat complicated process. And with Copilot for Security, you make it easier, right? Which again helps to reduce the gaps and increase overall security posture.
Okay, so you've hit on an interesting point there. By the way, I had no idea that you could do your own custom machine learning models. That's fascinating. I'm going to do some study on that, so thank you. But there is a degree of, estates are complicated. The breadth of capability has to be broad. So that suggests to me that there can be some adoption challenges. What sort of challenges do organizations face when it comes to adopting Sentinel?
I don't think that there are like a specific Sentinel as a SIEM solution challenges. I think when organizations are adopting Sentinel as a SIEM solution, organizations face similar challenges across the board. You need to kind of it all depends on how big the organization is, what is their infrastructure, what is the solution they're migrating from to Sentinel, how complex was their SIEM solution. So I think there are kind of similar challenges across the board. Granted, there are couple of common ones for Sentinel, and we can discuss them, but they can be easily overcome by careful planning, looking at the best practices, and most importantly, taking the partner on board from the very beginning. Partner like Cloud Direct, who have the expertise and skills required to adopt the Sentinel, to maintain Sentinel, to help them to securely migrate from one SIEM solution to another SIEM solution. Now, Sentinel, maybe Sentinel specific challenges would be around data integration and billing mechanism. Okay. Now, the data integration challenge, is where the customers, because of their vast estate, because of the so many data available, they are finding it difficult to identify what data we really need, which logs offer us the most important insights. Okay, some of them are struggling to identify or build an API to connect the data if it's a very old legacy system, but it's still in a working productive environment and they need that, right? But again, if you take a partner on board, they will help with that planning. So you will, again, reduce the effort required to migrate from the one system to another. And very often the customers, when they do that within in-house knowledge, which sometimes can be limited because Sentinel offers really a lot of capabilities. They start ingesting, the SOC team or analysts, they start ingesting all sorts of logs, which also offers, successful logins, successful activities on your on-premise servers, which not necessarily is important for the SIEM solution, because if it's working well, maybe not necessarily need to focus on it, But once you start ingesting all sorts of logs, the cost for a Sentinel goes through the roof, because the billing mechanism with Sentinel is based on the consumption, right? The more logs you ingest, the more logs you have, the more data you have, the higher is the cost. Hence the importance of taking a partner on board and identifying what logs they really need. Okay, and it can be really easy avoided. Microsoft offers a lot of funding for customers who are migrating from one solution to another. There are funded proof of concept. Reach out to your Microsoft team, reach out to partner like Cloud Direct, and work on the proof of concept, work on migration plan to successfully implement Sentinel and really enhance your overall security posture and have that good understanding of your digital estate.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of reiterate that funding. So we're particularly proactive when it comes to working with Microsoft to secure funding for our clients. I think we rank third in Europe in terms of getting funding to help clients accelerate their cloud journey, whatever that may be. And so Sentinel is certainly one where there is resource available for you. And so if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out. We can make that application. It's a really quick process to be able to turn that around and get a funding decision, and that can help you with your development of your business case. But going back to the capacity side of things is interesting, because I can imagine organizations that take a DIY approach might get a shock when the bill comes
more often than not, unfortunately.
It's spoil the ocean. It's just absorb everything. So yeah, I think that kind of optimization, and I think that's also one of the benefits of that approach. Also means, I think there's been traditionally a mindset that Sentinel is for the enterprise, but actually, these threat actors now, whilst AI is certainly, from what I'm seeing, is more state-based actors. It will inevitably, as they always and have done repeatedly, these capabilities move down the stack. So ultimately, script kiddies will have them, and they will be exploiting, and their agendas are different. One might be political. It might be they have some kind of ethical objection to an organization. One might be financial. There are different motivators, and so the nature of the disruption can be very different. So having that and bringing that capability by having a consumption model that's, generally speaking, SMBs have a smaller logging footprint than an enterprise would. And so it kind of democratizes the use of technology for across the stack. Whereas I think the old paradigm when it came to security tooling is it was the enterprises that had all the enterprise grade security, and it was out of the reach of the SMB. But that consumption model, I think, creates a much more level playing field, so the SMBs can go and make use of that. Okay, so do you have any other sort of tips around or best practice approach, or any advice for an organization that is looking to dip their toe into Sentinel?
Yes. But I think, again, the organization really usually has those unique security needs, right? There is no approach that fits all. There is no silver bullet. It's really unique to each organization. but there are several like best practices, out there, for optimizing Sentinel. It all depends on your digital estate or your infrastructure, and your security needs. But the main ones would be really identifying and configuring your data sources, knowing where you will be taking the insights from, and then prioritizing, knowing which logs, which sources are the most important for you. Again, maybe some isolated on-premise server should not have top priority. You should know what's happening anyway, but maybe shouldn't be your top priority. And the second one would be, once you identify, which are your top priority sources, your top priority logs, you need to fine tune those detection rules to reduce false positive and increase threat detection. And it's important that organizations who embrace Sentinel leverage the available playbooks and use Sentinel's AI and machine learning capabilities for proactive hunting and anomaly detection. Because through Sentinel flows so much data, so much insights, which helps the customers to discover those unseen, unknown risks. The hackers today, they don't hack in, that's in the past. Now they just log in. They identify the weakest link, because every organization is as strong as their weakest link, but they always will identify the weakest link. So they will just log in. And the more integration with other services you have, the more insights you will have. So you will monitor using Sentinel your digital estate, the insights, your cases, the alerts, to really know that I'm able, or my SOC team is able, to detect those threats and act on them as soon as possible. So know your data sources, know which one offers the insights, that are important, and then work on your rules, on detection rules, to really reduce false positives, so we're able to focus, or your SOC analyst team is able to focus on what's important, those high priority alerts, multi-stage incidents, and the proactive hunting.
That's a fascinating way you've described it, because I talk a lot about AI. That's my keen area of interest. And actually, what you've described is almost identical to how I describe the AI adoption journey, because AI is basically kind of useless without data.
Yeah.
Data is the thing that underpins it. So know your data sources and identify the ones that you think are going to deliver the most, in this case, business value, as in your case, security value, and then refine that to make sure it is appropriate for your needs. In your case, you're tuning, this might be some kind of data transformation. And then, because you're hooking in and you're getting insights across multiple data sources, as opposed to this siloed mindset that you have with application data, you're also saying it's true for security data. And so actually there's almost an identical kind of model in terms of how you treat and adopt data to achieve a particular outcome. So yeah, that's fascinating. Maybe it's worth touching on in terms of, what sort of feedback do you get from your audiences? You obviously speak to a lot of people about Sentinel. What are you hearing from them? What are you hearing in terms of their, whether it be problems or challenges or approaches they're taking? I think just some insights from the general marketplace through your engagements would be useful.
We do. You're absolutely right. We do get a lot of feedback, and I must say again, it's really each of the feedback is unique to organization's journey that they went through from migrating the current SIEM solution to Sentinel solution. So if they were I mean, how did they do it? Did they manage to do it themselves? How big is the organization? Did they take a partner on board? Where the logs, the data they had, huge terabytes of data, and they needed to import it, and then they had the challenge with the high cost, right? So it's all very unique to each organization. But obviously, there are kind of main points that customers highlighted, almost everyone across the board. And those would be, capability to integrate with third-party tools, the capability of the unified Microsoft security platform. Identity is the control plane. That's where it starts. It's every breach, attack, hacks starts with the identity. So the integration with Entra ID, integration with your on-premise identity system, Azure Active Directory, integration with the third-party tooling. If you go and you have a different identity management system, so integration piece, it's extremely important. So that's one thing and because we offer so many connectors, we offer you to create connector, so you're able to ingest those logs. So that capability is highlighted as very positive throughout customer feedback. And also the fact that, again, you have that unified holistic view. Once you integrated all of it and the signals, the data starts floating, it's amazing how they're like, oh my God, I can see it in one screen, where in the past I had to switch between 3-4 different. I can see it in one screen what's happening, and I'm able to drill down to the minutes on the second when the breach or malicious activity happens. And it's like right there you have. And it's difficult to kind of portray the ease of use, but you have a screen which you have your incident, and on the side you have all the evidence, forensic evidence, to know what happened. So that's the thing that most organizations are amazed about. And it takes time to get to that journey, but once you're there, I mean, you never want to go back to the multi-siloed approach. Never.
I remember I was working with a large printing company whose name you would recognize, but I won't say who it was. They suffered a breach. Their biggest problem was, yes, they had the breach, and yes, they went and deployed, and yes, they went about containment and recovery. But what they couldn't do is identify, how do I know I'm safe now?
Yeah.
Because what was the attack vector? They knew the kind of the effect, but they didn't have a good visibility on the cause. So whilst they could say, right, well, this server or these servers were the ones that had problems and we have resolved for that, how do they know it's not going to happen in another 5 minutes time? And so that kind of forensic landscape view, where you've got like a timeline of attack, this is how they got in, this is what they did next, this is where they moved, then they went to this server, and these are the attack patterns and technologies they use. And then you can kind of reverse back and say, well, okay, well, I need to go and patch that and solve for that. I need to go and change these policies, and you can reverse it all the way back to the beginning, giving you peace of mind that forensically you are now clean from the attack. You might not be experiencing the symptoms, but but it's more important to know the underlying infection has been mitigated and removed. So I think that sort of timeline playbook kind of thing, I think, is hugely powerful, not just during the breach, but after the breach.
Absolutely. Again, we need to take learnings from it. And one thing I kind of want to mention, that it does affect everyone, Microsoft including. And there were recently incidents Microsoft had, right? And even we took learnings from it. We started the Secure Feature Initiative in Microsoft to make sure our platform is secure. We started with secure by default, secure by design, and secure operations. Security is now #1 job for everyone in Microsoft. Whenever we design update, whenever we design a solution, security is the first thing on my mind for everyone. So customers can have, as you said, the peace of mind knowing that we're doing everything we can to make sure our products are safe. And whenever they are using our products, they are safe also.
Yeah, I think I was reading recently that over whatever the period was, Microsoft's investment was like 5 billion, but that's now increased to 20 billion
Yes.
because of the sort of drive that sits behind it. And we kind of touched about that sort of the review, and that got me to thinking in terms of the forensic review, and that what got me to thinking about the sort of compliance. Now, one thing I really encourage organizations to do is go through, it's a relatively simple level of compliance certification, which is the Cyber Essentials Plus. The reason I like them to go and do it is because it actually starts to create a culture within an organization that actually says, right, I have these vulnerabilities. I'm not going to fix this vulnerability for today. I want to put a mechanism in place that fixes it for all time. And it makes people more present when it comes to security. And I think that's good. So in terms of compliance, because let's face it, there are how many standards, and the EUs are just coming out with new ones. There's NIS2. These things don't stand still. And let's face it, AI legislation is going to be coming on soon, and there's going to be standards, and that's going to have a ripple effect in terms of activities, especially because there'll be a disparity between different geographies. How can Sentinel help with those kind of compliance standards?
Funny fact, Microsoft tracks now that on a daily basis, right? On a daily basis, there are approximately 250 whether regulations update or new regulations coming out worldwide.
250.
That number, think about it, right? And it's all because of the explosion of data, the privacy laws and everything. It's huge. So the organization can't just ignore it any longer. They have to accept the fact that security and compliance have to be on the budget every year without putting them at the bottom of the list. In terms of Sentinel, what Sentinel does, how it supports the organization is by offering the CMMC, which is Cybersecurity Maturity Model Framework, right? So they offer that certification. And what does that certification does is allows your compliance and governance teams to design, build, monitor, and respond to any existing or new regulation across Microsoft, third-party, hybrid, on-premise, and multi-cloud workloads. We know we're not the only provider, so again, we're supporting the customers on that journey also. So we provide the built-in compliance content templates, allowing to connect to different platforms and services. So, organization can effectively manage and demonstrate the compliance, run the forensics, run the reporting, and all that. So we are there. We are, we have to comply with those regulations also. So we support the customers on their journey also.
Fantastic. Now, is there anything else? Because I'm just conscious of time. So I just stop for a moment. If there's anyone in the audience who has any questions, feel free to go and drop them into the chat, and we'll go and look at those, and we'll have a bit of time at the end to go and address those if there are any questions. So don't be shy. And is there any other sort of closing thoughts that you might have, Lina, that might help the audience with understanding what they might want to do in terms of their next steps?
Start thinking about AI strategy. Start thinking about getting the benefit of AI security. In terms of the advice, right? I know the Microsoft kind of, just the last year, we were the first one to kind of talk about productivity Copilot for Microsoft 365. So incorporating AI into your daily basis, right? Copilot for security, Fabric, AI is part of Microsoft's strategy. AI is part of Microsoft. We have a partnership with OpenAI, which helps us on that journey also. But in terms of security, really, I think every organization needs to start thinking about zero trust framework, zero zero trust strategy. You have to verify every access request, regardless of its original. You should never assume trust. Never.
Mm.
It's a trap.
Yeah, the
you
trust
know
that
uh,
verifies yesterday's world.
yes, the organization needs to start investing in advanced threat technologies, because trust me, cyber criminals are, their tactics, tools, techniques becoming more and more sophisticated. So everyone needs to leverage in AI and machine learning. They need to start thinking about enhancing employees' knowledge around cybersecurity. I mean, and as funny as it sounds, they need to start taking the MFA seriously. Just a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with with one of my accounts. I mean, they have a help desk, and the help desk has domain administrator capabilities and access, and they don't have MFA.
Mm.
In today's world, we still have those challenges. So it's not the luxury we can afford any longer. Uh, and I know it's a time, and I know there are many other factors that we need to take into consideration. But you need to start somewhere. So start with MFA, start with zero trust, and whenever the um, your employees attend a training or get certified for certain training, make it as a culture to share that, to make your other employees aware about what's happening. So even if you take a QR code, the recently, the risk that flew through all the email protections, right? Make sure they are aware they shouldn't be clicking on a QR code. And how do you do that? Making sure your SOC analysts have enough time to train themselves, to attend events, and to spread the word.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And the irony is you mentioned a couple of things there that are coming up. So we're actually trying to organise a zero trust. So I think in January's episode, I think we're looking to do another fireside chat with Microsoft on zero trust. And I'm currently and George, my colleague, we're actually working on an AI strategy piece. I think I've got a webinar coming up next week where we're going to look at that. But we're also producing, what are the steps that once you have the strategy, how do you implement that strategy? So taking it a kind of step further. So I agree with all of those. And if anyone's interested in joining those, you're more than welcome. What I will do is say we have an event that is we're going on. There are very limited spaces next. So George, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the slide, thank you. We're hosting a security event with multiple speakers. It's hosted on HMS Belfast in London. So excellent venue. And but there are only a few places left. So if you're interested in attending that, we've got speakers from various different industries and Microsoft speakers talking about the breadth of security. So if that's something of interest, please go to the website where you can register your interest. But I think there's literally just a handful of places left. So I can see there's no questions that have come through, so I'm going to wind it up there. Lina, this has been fascinating. This has been really, really interesting, and I've really enjoyed this one. So thank you very much for your time. If anybody wants to have any follow-up questions, please send them. We can pick them up later and follow up with you. If you're interested in exploring funding opportunities, again, reach out to us. How great is it to have an expert like Cloud Direct deliver the outcome that's paid for by Microsoft, so you go and get the benefit. It's a lovely situation to be in. So I'm going to wrap up this call now. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a nice day, and thanks again, Lina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.